Hey there, Ride the Car Guy here, and you may notice something missing. The Xterra is outside right now, but I want to show you something before I go move it into the garage. So the other day I got in the Xterra to go to work, and I got some not so great news on the dash. All right, check this out. If we turn the motor on, first of all, I had trouble starting, that's a bit odd. But also, check this out. The battery light is on, and I don't have any power steering. So this can really only point to one thing, and that is the drive belt or serpentine belt. Now, the serpentine belt drives all kinds of stuff on the motor, and in the Xterra it's right up front. And let me try to show you here. Yeah, there's one of the pulleys, and the drive belt is literally just fallen off of it. And if you just follow it along, you'll see that it's off of every pulley, and it just sort of, once it's off one, obviously, it just kind of falls off the rest, and then it just sits in the motor bay. Now, you might be inclined to kind of panic when you get into your car and your battery light is on, and then you also don't have power steering. It's really not the end of the world. It might be if you're in the middle of a road trip, but mine was just sitting at home, and getting the belt on is actually a pretty easy task. You just need to get a few things out of the way. Let's get this into the garage, and I'll show you how to quickly get your belt back on. All right, so to get to this, we need a flathead, some pliers, and a ratchet with a 10mm head. So we're just gonna start by taking off the air box. Just have this here, disconnect that, and set that aside. So that way it's just out of the way. We don't wanna mess with any electrical. Unhinge your box. Excellent. Loosen this PCV hose. Pull that off. Loosen your connection to your throttle body. All right, that's good. Now we just need to get the two 10mm bolts off the top of this, but unfortunately they're being covered by the engine cover. So take that off first. You should be able to do this with a Phillips head screwdriver or your 10mm. So I just pulled that off and exposed the two 10mm bolts right here. Then just take those off, and this whole piece should come out. All right, once those are loose, just pull it off your throttle body the rest of the way. Excellent. And now just set that aside. So here's the deal. Once that's off and you've taken that out, you should be able to get in and see all of your pulleys and kind of what their situation is. The beauty is that the Nissan uses what's called a castellated belt. So it's got these ribs on one side and it's flat on the other. And so you're gonna see in the corresponding pulleys that if it has ribs, then it needs to go on the underside. If it's flat, it needs to go on the backside. So I'll show you the diagram anyways, and you wanna use that to kind of follow along and make sure that the belt's on correctly. But now that this is out, we can kind of fit everything back here and we can go and replace our belt. So for me, I'm lucky my Xterra had this issue while it was sitting in my own driveway. So I just went ahead and bought a new belt, and I'm just gonna replace the belt since if the belt is slipping, it's usually slipping for a reason. I would definitely be a liar if I told you I didn't spill my fair share of liquids on this belt while working on other things. So instead of taking it off and cleaning it and putting it back on, I'm just gonna buy a new one. These are under 20 bucks. And if you do want this belt, just head to the description below where I put in a link for it. I'm gonna start by removing the belt, and I'm just gonna take out as much as I can. All right. And then it kind of wraps around the fan. So it goes around the fan and then gets to that crank. So let me just kind of feed it out. There we go. See if it gets caught on stuff, just gently guide it out of the way. Okay, awesome. Easy enough to pull out. Now we just need to get our new belt and throw it in. So let's take the belt out of the package, and you want to hold it like this. So basically kind of fold it in half. And the reason we're doing that is because the belt goes around the fan, or around the crankshaft pulley, and then back over. So the front of this has 7 pulleys. It's important that we put it on correctly. We don't want any pulleys running backwards or anything crazy like that. So like I said, again, sort of pinch this side like this, and then set the left side down and then bring the other side over the fan to the right. So that way it can wrap around the fan pulley and get to that crank. It might be tough to see, but I have the belt around the crank. And then, again, I want to wrap it below, I think this is this is the AC compressor. So again, below the AC compressor. And then lift the top of the belt and bring it over your idler. And then over your tensioner. You may just want to leave that one off for now if you have the space. So let me show you that. All right. So this here, this is your tensioner. This is how, once we get the belt on the rest of the pulleys, we're going to pull this down, slide the belt over and let go, and it's going to pull up and obviously put tension on the belt. So now we have our last two pulleys. So grab the belt, wrap it around those two. All right, there we go. Excellent. And now it looks like it came off the crank, but that's okay. You're gonna find that you're gonna have to kind of go back and forth here because you don't have four hands to do this. You're gonna have to go back and forth and kind of get it on all the pulleys. So for now, I'm going to pop it off the front of the tensioner. So as you can see here, it is sitting on the top of the tensioner, not on the pulley itself. And then we're going to come back to the other side and try to get this back over the crank. So now we're at the point where you'll see we have it on our idler pulley. Down there is the AC. It's loosely on the fan. It's basically wrapped in the correct direction. Over here it is off the tensioner pulley, and then it's on the power steering and the alternator over there. What we need to do next is there is a hole in the front of that pulley, that tensioner pulley, that we need to get a ratchet on, pull it down, and then pull the belt up over top of that pulley. So go back through, check that the belt is sitting correctly in all of the pulleys. Of course, the crank is below the fan. That's a bit tough for you to see, but it's right below there. And then once that's all set in place, just grab your ratchet, throw it in the front of that tensioner, pull it down, and get that belt on there. Now your tensioner, you want to grab a regular 1/2-inch ratchet, slide it on here, and if you push down now, your tensioner will pull down as well, and then the goal is to get that belt over top of this and onto here. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to slide the ratchet down so it's on the opposite side of the belt, and then click it into the tensioner. Excellent. So it should look something like that. Now, as you can see, it's also off of the fan just because the belt is small, right? It's smaller than this tensioner, obviously. It's smaller than the current path of the belt because the tensioner is all the way loose. So we need to push down and get the belt not only on the tensioner pulley, but also on the fan pulley. So push down as far as you can. There we go. Slide it on there. That's good. And while keeping tension on it, get your hand over and get it onto the fan belt. Excellent. All right. Now gently let go of it. Awesome. So now our belt's back on. So I'll try to show you as best I can here. We now have it over top of, that is the alternator and the power steering pump. And then it runs up over this idler pulley at the top, down over top of our AC, and then underneath, it's kind of hard to see, let me see if I can get a different angle here, around our crank, and then over top of the fan pulley, and then back over that tensioner. Now before you start it back up, you want to make sure that you see this here. See how the belt sits inside of the outside kind of guides on this pulley? Anything that has these grooves, you want to make sure it's sitting correctly in each of the pulleys. So go around to all of them, make sure that it's sitting squarely on the pulley and it's not offset. If it is offset, you could not only damage the belt, but it'll pop right back off and you'll be right back where you started. So I'm just going to do one last check I'm going to look at all the pulleys, especially the crank down there, and everything looks good. So now that everything's back in place, I'm just going to make sure that my engine bay is clear, and I'm going to reassemble that air intake, and then we'll get this thing started up. All right, so I made sure that the engine bay was clear and that my belt looks good. So now let's go ahead and turn this thing on, see how it looks. Woo! All right, took a minute there to start, but honestly, I started it a few too many times while the alternator was obviously not working. So that will definitely start to drain your battery, and the cold cranking amps will get sapped pretty quick. But the alternator light, the battery light, is no longer on, and I have power steering, so we're in good shape. The last thing you want to do is just come out and be sure that it seems to be running fine. And so just double check the belt. You can take a look down on each side and make sure that that belt is running correctly. All right, so as you can see, it looks like it's on there, obviously not falling off again, so that's good. And that means that the job is done. Now this is technically a job you could do on the roadside if it slips off while you're driving. Just be really careful, and obviously if the belt is slipping again, there's usually a reason. So if you can get it to someplace safe, definitely just go ahead and replace the belt. If you're here for that Nissan 4-liter 6-cylinder, head to the description below where you can pick up the belt that I used in the video. I also posted down in the description below a link to my website where I put that diagram that I showed you earlier in case you want to print it out or just have a virtual copy of it. If you did like this video, please be sure to hit that like button. Also subscribe for more content and hit that bell, because if you're only subscribed, you'll never know when that new video comes up. Catch you in the next one. See you later.